Mr. Davis, I presume. And Mr. Dean. All the usual suspects.
No Kaiser Soze here.
How's your leg doing, John?
Fantastic. I'm back on the bike, and yeah, life is good.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That quickly.
That quickly. 111 days, but nobody's counting.
I get it.
Did you have an off?
I did, yes. August 1st.
I'm sorry. I'm Robin, by the way. I don't know if we've met yet, John. Nice to meet you.
Ah, nice to meet you too, Robin. Yeah, I
Hey,
had a little low-speed oopsie off-road on my KLR and spiral fracture of the tib-fib.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good times.
Little something, nothing much.
Nah, just a little thing.
Donald, I love what you're doing with the early coaches this episode. I'm going to kick back for this one. I'm just putting it on in the background. And then Maggie right behind me, she's here. I got to switch. Let me switch my output so I can hear you better. Hold on here. There we go. Say anything.
So it's not this episode. It's
the next one.
It's on Sunday at 8 p.m.
Okay. I'm going to try to convince her to be there because she's.
Please do.
Yeah. She's a better half anyhow. People like her better than me anyhow. She talks less.
Come on, Miss Maggie. Oh, she can't hear me because you got a headset on.
Yeah, I already asked her about it. I thought it'd be cool. I thought that was going to be tonight, so I was trying to push her into it. But she's going to hit the store, buy me all my happy juice, get some turkey and mashed potatoes. You want to wave and say hi?
Don't be bashful or anything.
She's trying to close off work, so she's working on her job, and I just got off of mine. So
no, we're looking for first and second year coaches. I talked to Jeff Mateus. He will not be there, unfortunately. It was his idea, though, and I think that's I'll dream up of some probing, interesting questions, and let's learn from these people that have that different perspective than we do now.
Yeah, we don't talk about it much in the household here, except for now and then. But Rita saw something in Margaret that I did not notice, and that's that. I don't know. She just really knows how to draw the information out of the students, like it ain't nobody's business, which is pretty cool. Just go on. Sorry.
No, it's an important characteristic for rider coaches to be able to ask the right questions, develop that trust. I'm not going to use the first word because you know it. You know it, don't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, were you going to say authenticity?
No. That's as important as it.
Was the next one going to be electroencephalogram? Because I was totally thinking electroencephalogram.
Well, that was your response the first time, so I know you know what I'm talking about then.
It's 4 syllables, man. The bigger the word, the better. I watched a tidbit of the 2.5-hour freaking epic journey we took last time. Great editing, by the way. This is why I have a silence eliminator on all of our podcasts. But I was taking a gander at the end of it, and I was like, wow, I do not remember saying half of this junk. That was probably 4 fingers deep in JMO by then. And it reminded me of what Ms. Holland was bringing up. We were talking about smaller displacement bikes on the track. And I remembered that the thing about those smaller displacement bikes, though, is that the rear tires, all the tires tend to be skinnier. I do not like that result. I do not like the way that handles in the corners.
Good evening, everybody.
Yay! Dennis.
Check out that beard he's got going on. It must be November.
Yeah, it's thicker than yours, Don. What's the problem there? You trying to catch up?
No, I shaved it off.
Okay. I always do this during the winter. Now look at John there with what
John Davis right there. A new beard, a new bar has been set.
Okay. Well, his is bigger than mine for sure.
That's kind of a pinky and a brain thing going on there.
Yeah, this is how I think.
No, I needed to look skinnier, so I got rid of just a little bit more here so I could elongate my face.
Well, that's the problem with having a beard. I look like I'm heavier than I already am, and I don't shave it off till probably middle of February, just before I go to Myrtle Beach.
Well, I've had a beard now for almost 10 years, and I just decided that it was time. So I went this way, and when I was in Indiana with my brother, people were coming up to me because he wears a goatee like this. And they were like, "Oh, it's not him." It was, kind of fun.
You must look alike then.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But when you're all covered up in gear and hats and stuff, it's easy to mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much skinnier and much better looking. That's my story. I'm sticking with it.
There you go.
My dear wife of 31 years has never seen my upper lip. I told her I have an old girlfriend's name tattooed right there, so I can't shave my mustache.
Did she buy it?
It's hard to tell, but so far so good.
New funny. So kind of wait for Robin to get back here because I have another question for him.
He must have ran off and got a beer or something.
I scared him away.
Okay. He was scared about the beard issue between me and John, I guess. I don't know.
He was feeling like an underachiever.
And Rita, she must be eating. She was in and out.
There he is.
He's back.
Dun, dun, dun.
He heard us talking about him.
So here's my question for you, Robin. What questions do you think?
I'm happy you asked. Wait, sorry, what? I had
What
so much material prepared.
Ask the first and second year coaches.
Oh. I have no freaking idea at all.
An interesting topic.
It is a great move. This is an excellent, excellent move. Just for all of us. Experience is a great thing, but this is like the first activity or, weekend gig that I've ever seen where the new mindset is bringing all the fresh truth to it. That is awesome. I've never seen that in any other pastime of a, I'm not choosing my words wisely here, weekend thing to do. So the questions to ask them, I mean, start with just how you doing? How's it going?
That's kind of why I opened it up to first and second year, because I know this year has been kind of an odd sort of year. Not everybody has had the opportunity to go out and really, stretch as a rider coach, being in their first year. And, we have COVID and all the constraints that we've had. So I think it's important to invite more people than just first year.
That's a good idea. You could ask the first year people, how do they feel about their first go of it? And you could ask the second year people, and this is a loaded response. Have you seen any uniformity in your second year as opposed to the first? So let me tell you about my experience, if I may.
Nobody's stopping you. I know that's hard to believe.
He froze up, I think. Of course, I was shaking my head no when he asked that question. There he is. He's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I lost connection. Okay. Am I coming through all right?
Yeah.
Ask your question because I'm not stopping you.
Okay. Did I ask the question already?
No.
Okay. Well, okay. So the two questions you could ask the first and second year students are, one, for the first year students, how's your year going and how's your experience? For the second year second year coaches, you should ask them, do you see any uniformity from the previous year? Is there anything that, what has grown and what has stayed consistent for you in 2 years? You don't have much of a pattern yet. And then I got cut off when I was starting to describe, like, I didn't have that when I became a coach. Here's my process of becoming a coach. It was the previous curriculum for 1 year, 2013 version, 1 year. Immediately after that year, I was going to have to recertify with the new curriculum. Immediately after that year, our source got we stopped running operations and we went over to Harper College. So we had a new boss. The year after that, we got the old boss back. I've never had anything that even remotely resembles consistency and have been frazzled. I had hair before I became a coach. It's gone. I just blame the gig, Well, I blame the gig and Kelly Howard. Those two people, two things. Just the job and Kelly Howard, who single-handedly walked up, noticed I had one hair left, and he just went, and it was gone. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot.
Do you think if it was consistent all that time that you would still be as interested in what you do because of it? You strike me as somebody who likes something new consistently.
Yeah, that's the jazz degree.
Okay.
So
Jazz, are you really telling me that?
yeah, I went to a conservatory, jazz and studio performance.
That's awesome.
I'm not mad about it. It makes me a great computer programmer.
Oh, there we go.
I grew up on Rush. I grew up playing to Neil Peart's records, all of them. Everything, yeah. Was that the notation?
With a play along CD.
Nice. Well, okay, so consistency. Consistency it doesn't need to be a primary topic, but if we're talking about it now, then I think I would have preferred at least a sense of stability. And that was on me. I was surrounded by a lot of experienced coaches, and I've not had repeat efforts. So even while I'm going through the motions with every class with the same material now for some time, it seems like the consistency falls on the coach, not the employer, not the source of information. It falls on the coach to find their own sense of self. And that's how they're going to be consistent. And, it probably takes a different level of heart than me. I was going to say, admittedly, I'm not, being a rider coach is the last part of my motorcycle career. I mean, what I mean is that it is not my default what I do in the motorcycle industry. It's not what I answer. I'm a rider coach. But we're talking about that here, and whatever I do for the love of the game, I want to be good at it, and consistency is a huge important ingredient with that. So if this is a thing that I do, consistency and stability and confidence, it's not going to come from the change up of curriculum and the different bosses and different routines. It's going to come from you deciding, okay, whatever is happening, this is what's solid, and that's the path I'm going to follow. So new coaches I remember being a new coach and not remembering demos, having to write up to the coach who was my co-coach and saying, like, okay, where am I starting off again? How are we going about this again? Where do I turn? And if I get it wrong, he just laughs it off. But I didn't know that. And new coaches don't know that. And the best part is, my final year in Illinois before we took off, I saw 2 new coaches coaching together. And it actually wasn't bad. It was on a 3-range location. So the veteran coaches stepped in one time to let students know that they were being disrespectful. They knew that this was a new bunch. So I think talking to them about not worrying too much is going to be a very good thing. If it comes to that, if that becomes a topic, worrying.
I'd like to say two things. The first is just feeding on what you said, Robin. I tell coach candidates and new coaches, there's very little you can do out here that we can't fix, you know, so don't overstress about stuff, you know, because the students likely will not know that you messed up, and you know, and your other coaches there to help you fix it. What is the question that we're answering? Just what was the springboard here? Just
oh, sure, come in late, make us repeat stuff. I see how it is.
I was going to say the same thing about that with Lynn. She just now got in here.
Well, you know, we love her just the same. In preparation, as always, for the next Tribe Talk, I put out information that we're going to talk to first and second year coaches and get their perspective on things. So in doing that, of course, I'm always fielding the questions to everybody here. What do you think we should ask them as prompts for providing that information?
I you know, try, as the site administrator, I try to set up the dialogue that, you know, what can I do to make this easier for you, you know, so that chain of communication is always open, and I'm certainly happy to entertain ideas, even if they're like out there, because, you know, I'm always looking for the better ways. So even if you're new, you might have the better ways. So let me know if you have an idea, and I encourage a dialogue between all the people on the staff that, you know, they can't have a conversation, you know, they don't feel like they can't have a conversation with anybody else that they're working with, and that there won't be repercussions or, you know, bad mojo because of it.
You know, one problem I see in the Houston area, Texas, from a trainer perspective, is you get rider coaches right out of a prep and they're thrown out into a range as a single coach, and they never, or at least for a long time, don't teach with a second coach. So they get in some pretty weird places when they're out there by themselves.
I can't even imagine having done that. I could never have done that.
Why do we do such things is the question.
Money.
Because you don't want to spend the money. That's why people do it. I would never put a brand new coach out teaching by themselves. That's just nuts. Because they don't have the experience to have the judgment to make the calls that they might need to make as a solo coach. I mean, I had, because of COVID, you know, we had different range setups, and some of my ranges weren't running, and some of the ones that were running were single coach ranges, but I hooked up some of my newer coaches with a seasoned coach. I paid everybody, just come in and let the guy that's been teaching solo mentor you in how to teach solo, you know, and then by the way, you're not going to be teaching solo, but you know, to kind of introduce that and get their feet wet, and you know, they kind of had the two of them got mentored by this guy, and then they each taught with the guy on the sideline before they went and were teaching on their own.
Another problem in Houston is range sizes. The problem is space. It's expensive and hard to find, so they have small ranges.
That topic was one of the very first topics we talked about when we started Tribe Talk, Kelly. And interestingly enough, I started poking around, and Kathy was able to inform us later on, I don't know if I shared it, that I think the majority of ranges now, and certainly the majority of new reorps, are compact or modified ranges, because we can't find the real estate we need anymore. And by the way, just so everybody is clear, when I say we, I mean all of us as a profession. I am in no way involved with MSF, so I don't want to give that impression. Just to be clear, other than being an MSF rider coach.
Did a quality assurance visit on a guy recently who I don't think I trained him. He'd been out there about 2 years by himself, and exercise 1 took 22 minutes, and exercise 2 took about 25 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty speedy.
It must be awesome.
Yeah.
I say, what's the secret? I'd love to get my times down that low.
And that's why we have to talk to new coaches.
It's drift. That's what it is, drift.
Yep.
So I have a situation at one of the schools that I teach at where we just finished an RCP, and we've got a number of new rider coaches, one of whom is a friend of mine. She's in the same riding club that I'm in, and I've known her for years. She just won't take that last step and teach her first class. She wants everything to be perfect. And I keep telling her it's never perfect. You just got to dive in and go. But I can't seem to push her off the edge of the pool and get her in the water.
Yeah, cutting loose ain't easy, man. It's not cut loose. I coached a class, Kelly, you'll love this. I coached a class. I was doing classroom. The rest of the class got canceled. Somebody else's range time, and like the class wouldn't interact. They were trying to, and I was trying not to fill space. And I was just like, "Hey, I want to go home. You got to interact, right?" And so I think I was halfway in there, and so I pointed them. I don't remember which one it was. It was something where they knew that they were supposed to read the top of the screen, and I just turned around and faced the corner. I must have counted like 30 seconds is a long time. If you're just staring at a corner, waiting for somebody to fall, just relax, get them laughing. They realized what they needed to do. Everything lightened up there. And I don't think you get that from just being like, okay, and then we will do this, and then make sure that crosses over to a perfect 45-degree angle, 90 degrees. We're going to make, you can't box through the process. Eventually, you got to just like act on exhale. Act on it, take a deep breath, and as you're exhaling, start moving and, enjoy the process. But don't stagnate either. How long has she been sitting still? How long has she had her certification?
3-4 months now.
When I was a brand new coach instructor back in the day, I had finished my prep, and I called my site administrator and asked if I could come and observe a class post prep, and he said sure. So I got down there, and the other instructor was there, and he was there, and he's putting together some stuff in a briefcase, and he turns around and he's walking out the door, and I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the DMV." I said, "Who's teaching the class?" He says, "You are." And he turns around and he leaves. So you might just do like the full immersion method and see what happens.
Have you invited her to Tribe Talk yet?
I have, and now, and having just become aware of next week's topic, I'm going to invite her again because I think it will be good for her. And Lynn, playing off of what you said, I've talked to the site administrator and said, schedule her with me, and it's all you. And we'll see how it goes.
John, Sarah here from Wisconsin. Has she asked you to shadow classes?
She has shadowed many, many classes and continues to. She keeps coming out, and she's just worried about doing something wrong. And it's like she just wants this perfect thing. And I tell her, it's like there is no perfect class. At least I've never seen a perfect class. So
If I don't screw up something in a class, I feel like maybe I'm not trying hard enough.
exactly.
All right, I'm going to pass this back in a second here. So I'm going to try to get Mags in here, Maggie Dean. I'll try to get Mags in here. Rita will vouch for her. So will Sarah. And then also, Kelly, do you happen to have a line on Jason Dean? Because he'd be a fantastic bring in. He's a good dude. That'd be another one-year coach.
He teaches over Hutto, doesn't he?
Say that again.
Doesn't he teach at Hutto, Texas?
He does teach in Hutto. He teaches for Total Rider. Mike, you were going to say something. Sorry, man. What were you about to say?
I don't even remember now. Oh, well.
My bad. My bad. I saw the look on your face. I was like, ooh.
Folks, I really got to go. I'm smelling peach cobbler. Good to see everybody.
Send me some.
Thanksgiving, Kelly.
Happy Thanksgiving, Kelly.
Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we'll see you Sunday.
I'm trying to remember the last time I had a new rider coach come and shadow a class of mine. I think I said to him, hey, do you feel like riding a demo? He was just standing around and we were like showing him how laid back and fun it was. And I finally just said, hey, you want to ride a demo? And he's like, no. It's like, what? You got all your gear. You came on your bike. It's fine. But he was gun shy. So I'm trying to think who we have new in Wisconsin that we should invite, Rita.
John, were you trying to get this person to do a solo class or to do a class like a 12 and 2?
Oh, no. This school is a modified range, so it'd be a 10 and 2. But yeah, I'm like, no, I would never throw her into the deep end with a solo.
As probably one of the newer rider coaches here, the two things I would say is, one, you're never going to be perfect. It just gives QA something to put down on a piece of paper for you. And the other thing is, if you've got another rider coach, just, if you're upfront with that person, say, hey, look, if I mess something up, feel free to step in. And any experienced rider coach can do it without stepping on your feet and making you lose any credibility. And the only way you're going to learn is by doing. And the longer she waits, the more afraid she's going to get. And you're going to end up losing her.
Yeah.
That is my opinion.
I'm kind of hoping that maybe if she works with me, because I have a rapport and a relationship established with her over many years, she might feel comfortable and we can work through it together. But
I mean, I absolutely understand when Dawn did the personality thing a couple months back, the desire to have everything perfect, but it's never going to work that way. You can have everything perfect and it rains. You can have everything perfect and you end up with the 6'7" guy who weighs 400 pounds and can't go on, the one GZ you have left. It's never going to be perfect. It's dealing with what you've got, making the best of it. And what I tell myself is just try to do the best I can for my students, for who's there that day. And just dive in, start doing it, start having the fun, start getting the experiences. And then you also start getting the knowledge how to handle all the crazy crap that comes up.
Although to invert that, one of the things we're looking for is questions to ask them so they can actually inspire the lot. So we're trying to draw information from them.
And the mistakes, again, their mistakes are really fixable. I mean, geez, I wish I had $1 for every time I sent the students over there and I meant to send them over here and they're over there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was supposed to send you over here, and it's okay even to tell the students, hey, I messed up. We need to go over there instead. And so what,
Another opportunity to line up and another opportunity to stop, another opportunity to use our space cushioning and our safety nets and our whole bunch of stuff.
See, but still, I guess, so what questions do we want to ask them though?
So something that as you all were speaking, that popped into my head, what's the hardest part that they have found to being the new coach?
Oh, I like that.
What's the easiest part that you have found? And then what is the most rewarding thing that has happened to you as a coach? All three of those came in mind when we started talking about worrying. So, think in that nature, this isn't, I want everybody to understand that, this is for them to tell us what's going on so that we can learn from them. It's not for us to play, I got you. And I'll look for everybody to be helpful in that manner, because I think it's important that we embrace, we certainly need more new rider coaches. So as they're coming in, we need to make them feel comfortable and be a part of the tribe, so to speak.
Yeah, solid question here. What time does Tribe Talk start on Sunday?
8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, that was me that just sent that out, Don. I was trying to get another rider coach to join that came in last year.
And, you know, back to John, she sounds to me like she's very technically oriented. She, if we were gonna, you know, throw her into wired that way, maybe a perfect personality because she wants to please, you know, make sure everything's dress right, dress. So, you know,
Yeah, I just came up with a question about this on my own with no help from anybody that totally isn't being read. But John, does your new RC think the students should ride perfectly the first time? I mean, maybe comparing her first time to the student's first ride would give her a different perspective. I'm very introspective.
so in that, you know, we've had discussions about being technical on one end and being kind of an artist on the other end, where you really don't care just as long as everything works. And we're looking to get both of those in our rider coaches, or meet somewhere in the middle, to be a craftsman, to be an architect of both what is perfect or what's technically proficient, but understand that no, an old Army term, no plan survives first contact with a student. And so in the middle is really what we're looking for.
I don't know, as a rider coach and maybe as a QA member, I always say to myself, no matter what I'm doing, whatever the other rider coach is doing, or whatever I'm watching, whatever class I'm watching, I always say, wait a minute, I've never seen that before. Was it safe? Was it effective? Was it efficient? That's it. It's as long as they're reading the cards and it meets safe, effective, and efficient, it could be the coolest, newest way I've ever seen something done. Right? Does anybody disagree with that? As long as it's safe, effective, and efficient?
No, I do
They're
not.
reading
I
the
do not
cards,
disagree with
right?
that. In fact, we know one person we have in common who can pull that off better than anybody than I know. He's not here yet, is he? Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I completely agree.
I'll say, who is it? You know, let us know.
Oh, that guy with newfangled ideas? I know exactly.
Harry Jasonheim.
Yes.
I was gonna say, are you talking about me or something?
Hermie Germ Hamey.
You know, I love safe, effective, and efficient. And I mean, it's a great tool when you have to like look at the situation differently. But I'm also, I also get a little bit scared when I hear that, because so many people use it as an excuse, and it's not safe, or it's not effective, or it's not efficient. It's just a way for me to get away with doing something that I want to do. And I will tell you, there, before the grace of God, I need to make something happen. I'm going to do this. Is it safe, effective, and efficient? Enough for me. But, you know, if somebody else is looking at it, it may be completely different. So everything with a caveat and a little temperament, I think.
That sounds like the truth has different versions now. No, same line. It's safe enough for you, you said, right?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
That was true to me.
Exactly. And so, you know, when we look at rules, are we looking at the intent or the realistic view of the rules, or are we looking at Don's a teenager and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to make this all happen? Completely different. And you know, the safety level of Don, the helicopter pilot, is a lot different than the safety pilot of Don being a motorcycle pilot versus, or a tractor pilot or a combine pilot, which is something I thought of a lot in the last several weeks, is how this all translates and goes to different places, and how we frame our own realities at the moment.
I'm hearing that's all perspective.
Oh yeah, love that word.
I remember when I was getting ready for Wisconsin, I was still adapting to the new curriculum, and I went to the update with Sarah, and she gave me the laser pointer and said, "Where would you start How would you get the students lined up for this exercise? And I may as well have just taken the laser pointer and pointed to the street and sent them to a freaking Burger King. It was the wrongest, everything that could possibly not be the way to do this efficiently or safely. And still, it was a situation that was easily remedied. Yeah, new coach mindset and a 3-year coach, I think.
I mean, coming back to the line and stuff up things, I mean, I try to choose paths of travel that are going to put students not making that little stupid hairpin turn, to get online. But the students don't always do what you tell them to do. And sometimes the new coach will tell them to do something wacky. And so you can kind of watch it unroll and then later say, so how'd that work? I mean, it's all teachable on all levels for the students and for the new coach. And there's not a lot. I think they really just need to get that there's not a lot that is going to make you crash and burn. You have another coach there who, if it's really bad, is going to step in and fix it for you. And there's a pretty broad realm of okay, with a lot of things. We have this flexibility, and it has to be pretty bad, for it to be pretty bad. And I think, most coaches have enough common sense to not go there. Yeah.
That's pretty good. So Donald, are you keeping the score on the questions that we're going to ask?
I am.
Freaking Lynn just hooked one up for me. I thought about when Lynn brought up the jog turn to get lined up elsewhere. I've seen coaches say, here, do a quick S turn to line up on the other side for pressing to initiate lean. Like that, we're still looking at some day one noise. It's like that's a borderline U-turn. That's a borderline limited space maneuver. Okay, cool. It's a way, but I'm thinking on a compact range, not a full size. So one thing I'd like to ask, what ranges are they working on? Have they been on a full size range yet? Have they been on a modified range yet? What kind of ranges generally? Like if you're keeping track of these questions, these are ones that'll be, I'm sure they'll have a lot of things to say about it. Heck, we might only get through the second question before they're just holding the mic for the rest of the whole show. I personally prefer the teardrop. Send them long. Go diagonally to the end of the range. Take a right. Come back. Figure it back to me, and then hook it up to easy peasy. No tension, and it takes all of an extra 5 seconds.
Good questions, because it gives us better context. Welcome, Lynn. Sorry, screwed up. I'm new at this. Please forgive me.
Well, I had to scramble to get on there. Apparently, when they upgraded my computer system, they deleted all these apps.
You'll have that.
I've been enjoying it. I did just finish my first year of coaching, and
so as you listen to the questions we're dreaming up here, you'll be prepared for Sunday's Tribe Talk, and you can participate.
Even better, without answering the questions, what are you wishing somebody would have asked you while you were going through the training process, or about where you're at now? And without answering, just save them up. We'll bring.
Well, I didn't hear half the questions because I was trying to get in, so I was back and forth. I think my big problem, I shadowed a whole lot in a lot of different places because I didn't have a lot of confidence when I first got started. I was afraid I was going to hurt someone, and we coach by ourselves. So there's 6 on there, and it's one of us. So I had one of my favorite coaches came in with me quite a bit, at least the first day when you're starting them off in exercises 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once they get past those, it's not so difficult. But those first 4 are so critical for brand new riders. I always run late, and it's always because I spend too much time in those 4 exercises. But I have a process, I guess, where once I feel comfortable with it, and even after shadowing quite a while, it's goofing up when you're by yourself and nobody knows that you have goofed up is where you figure out your processes. That's when I knew, okay, I got to remember this for next time I did that wrong, or I forgot this, and now that I've got comfortable with all the steps, I've been able to focus a little bit more, particularly on the range with specific problems or not necessarily problems, with specific coaching needs for each student. So I guess if anybody could have told me something, it was just go out there and try it. If you mess up, nobody's going to know it except you.
Yeah, Lynn, that is the truth in that respect. When you're teaching us on a compact range, or like I have many a times by yourself, and you go down and do the demos, and you, like on the box on exercise 9, when you're doing the box, if you should happen to maybe touch the line or go outside the line, you know you messed up, but you don't necessarily tell the students that, and they think you did it perfectly. But you also remember to try to correct it. Then on this other half of the range, you go down to do the other box, and you make sure you correct it that way. It's one of those things.
They'll see it.
It's one of those things you learn as you go along. We've all done it, I'm sure.
Yep.
By the way, Robin, over the last 3 weeks, because I have watched everything, I do go through every video second by second. The most fun thing I think that I saw in 3 weeks was Robin Dean explaining chin over wrist with the demonstration happening behind him. Hilarious. And I'm going to take it and make it a short 3-minute thesis video, because I think it was exactly the type of levity yet good content that people need to see. So big kudos, man. I thought that was funny. Don't let it go to your head, though.
No, that was with Kelly in the room, right?
No. Kelly
No.
was a different line. Who was the other guy?
It was Mike Dunn.
Mike Dunn.
Oh.
It probably already went to his head.
No. When you bring Mike Dunn into the mix, it just the bar just gets lower.
I thought it went way up, and that's how people relate. That's authentic. That was just so cool.
Yeah, man, that's my buddy Mike. He's awesome, and
That's
I'm glad you liked it. I remember nothing, and I claim no responsibility for it.
That's okay. I got video, tape, and audio.
I wanted to say something to Lynn Schroner.
It's Shaner.
Shaner, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm used to that. It's a horrible German last name.
There's nothing wrong with the German.
I just, this is Sarah from Wisconsin. And where are you from?
I live in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, beautiful weather, huh?
Oh, not right now. We got 5 days of pouring down rain.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Well, it's shit up here in Wisconsin, so.
I'm originally from St. Cloud, Minnesota, so I've been up in that area before.
I just wanted to say I've seen and taught with rider coaches here in Wisconsin that have been teaching for many years that don't recognize the importance of getting down those first 4 exercises to their novice students. So kudos to you, man. I think it's just wonderful that you recognize that right out of the chute. It's so important. I can't even tell you, it's just so wonderful to hear that we have a newer rider coach in the United States that understands the importance of getting those first 4 exercises under their belt and really spending too much time on them. Like you said, it's wonderful.
Lynn, I have to agree with what Sarah just said, because I've learned over the years, all the teaching I've done, that once the first 4 exercises, especially 2, 3, and 4, you start seeing those students start riding around these after a couple of laps around the range, and you start seeing them with that smile on their face, and they're starting to get it. You go like this. And that's, to me, that's extremely important, Because then after that, 5 through 14 is going to be a breeze. You're going to have a few bumps, of course, but you work through it.
Well, if you don't get a good foundation in the basics, how can you build on it? So, I mean,
Yes. Right.
First
Me
4
too.
exercises,
I mean,
yeah, you got to get that foundation, but you also don't want to spend an exorbitant amount of time on it.
well, and particularly a lot of the ones I teach down here in the summer where it's so hot, pushing that motorcycle to turn it around wears them out. And I'm still trying to figure out a way maybe to do a longer break after exercise 3 and let the hips and things have a break, because you keep going, and by the end of the day, even 5 hours on the range for somebody who's never ridden before, or even for somebody who rides a lot, 5 hours on the range is a lot for your first time. I've had them
Right.
the next day can barely move.
And they end up getting real tired because they've never been riding that way, because plus they also use muscles they never used before.
Yep, they got arthritis and hip, and so.
Right,
Not just physical fatigue either. They are mentally on for that whole time, and it's exhausting mentally as well as physically.
I was going to say 2 things. One, that's not the worst time to counsel people out if you don't think they're going to make exercise 4. That's one thing. So you got a little bit extra time there, and you can still let people into exercise 4. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's a trend of exercise 3. It's like, I don't know. And the other thing I was going to say was, that sidebar, and I'll hand it back to you. Donald, here's another question for you. Ask them, the new coaches, how are you having fun? What steps are you taking to have fun? And it made me think of, let me turn this stupid video off. Well, hold on. It made me think of two things that I learned to do down here in Texas that I really like. One is when you're asking people to find, for exercise 1, when you're actually asking them to find something, first off, look at a student and then ask them if they found it, and then shout out to the entire class, congratulations to name, they have discovered the blah, 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 do it sort of military style, and just repeat that over and over. It's real rigid, but they tend to start laughing about it. The other one is, if they can't find it, slowly advance on them and slowly get louder and louder and more frantic and nervous and make it a very high energy situation where they got to hurry up and find it. Where's the clutch? Where's the clutch pedal? Where's the shift pedal at? Just start freaking them out a little bit. They tend to giggle at that too. How are these new coaches having a good time? How are they keeping loose, or at least trying to?
Robin, you can't turn the video off. Don't you see how much fun John's having riding your roads?
I'm starting to get a little dizzy watching that video there with the Robin.
I gotta know, where is that road?
This is the best riding I've ever done. The best route I've ever been on. The most personally, this is 152 New Mexico, Elephant Butte to Silver City. And of all the roads I've ever been on, 50K in 3 years, this is the best road I've ever had the pleasure of riding.
It reminds me a little bit of California 36.
Is that the coastal thing?
Yeah, well, it runs from it ends up in Fortuna on the coast, and I think it starts in Redding. So from Redding to Fortuna.
So again, when I was trying to get into Wisconsin, I had a phone call with Sarah, and she was looking at my my driving record, and she asked me, so what can you tell me about New Mexico? Because there was no information there. And I said, well, what's on the paper? I'm looking at you, Sarah. She said, well, there's nothing here. There's no information. I was like, well, that's what you know about New Mexico. And heading back to our camp, this was that day. And I've been completely behaved since, quite frankly, because Sarah's so freaking nice, and I was like, great. Now I want to behave. That's no fun. Okay, fine. Good people.
I think you're making this stuff up, man.
Totally.
Just saying.
So from where to where again? Something Butte to Silver Springs?
It's Elephant Butte to Silver City, New Mexico.
Silver City.
Yeah.
Lynn, how are you having the students turn around and exercise too?
full lock right until you're parallel with the range, full lock left, and walk it around till you're back with your left hand over the cone facing the opposite direction. Our range has, it slopes down a little bit on one side, so I got to try to get everybody up to the other side, or pushing uphill makes it worse. But, you know, mostly if they start having trouble with it, I tell them I don't really care how they get it turned around. It's not the focus of the exercise. If you need help, you don't have to follow this exact procedure. Just get it turned around. So.
Have you had them do full lock right and then push backwards to straighten out the motorcycle?
Yeah, the way they call it, K-turn or something like that.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Might be a little less fatiguing.
Yeah, either way, like I said, I usually don't have too much trouble with it anymore, but in my last class I had a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, and then I had a 60-year-old and a 62-year-old. I had a hip replacement, arthritis in the knee, tendonitis, you name it. So I got the younger guys down there where it's harder to turn around, and I also had one of the guys who was actually shorter than I am. He was about 5'3", and it was really challenging for him to get that bike turned around. So, and I try, as soon as I see that everybody's got it pretty good, we get out of that, and it's still going to have people in pain the next day. I tell them all to go get some Epsom salt soap, take your ibuprofen.
They are using some muscles they haven't used before, for sure. One of my ranges is sloped, and I have found that the backing up method seems to work better on the slope if they turn right going downhill and turn left and back up going uphill. It seems to be easier to back up going uphill than to go forward going uphill. And I mean, it's still not a picnic, but it seems to be a little bit easier than pushing forward.
Yep. So somebody else, I shadowed somebody who we did the K thing with a couple of times. So if I do have somebody struggling, I try to get them to do it that way. It's easier if everybody's doing the same thing instead of having two doing the full lock right, full lock left, and some in the middle doing the Ks. Doesn't always work.
I just instruct them all to do the Ks on the slopey range.
Lynn, I'm assuming that you're teaching at a dealership, an Harley Davidson?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Montgomery on the range behind Montgomery Harley Davidson.
Okay.
So one of the things that I ask myself about that exercise is the objective of the exercise to learn how to turn a motorcycle around?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's not the point of the exercise. So however you have to get it turned around works for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever you got to do.
They're new on the bike. They don't necessarily know how to turn it around anyway. So giving them at least an example, and maybe that's what I should do, demo it more than one way. Since I'm doing it more than once, that might be a good alternative.
Yeah, do what works for you.
Could also confuse them. Once you decide on a way, unless they show that you can't, stick with the way you showed them.
Yeah.
We all go through it, and we all learn trial by error.
The whole concept of kind of thinking, well, I see this fairly often. I'm gonna show them both ways to do it, so that if any of the students in this class need to use that second method, can lead to, sometimes coaches will say, okay, think to themselves, well, I've seen this problem with this exercise. And so they add that into their explanation at the beginning. And then all of a sudden they think, oh, well, I see this also sometimes in this exercise, so I should explain that as well. And they continue to add and add things until pretty soon it's taking them 20 minutes to explain an exercise. And I feel that that kind of goes along the lines of OACR, observe, analyze, coach, reinforce. You should try to give them the minimum amount of coaching up front until you have observed and analyzed what additional coaching they need. So as Don said, giving them that minimal coaching at first, explaining one way to have them turn around, and then once you've observed and analyzed, particular students could benefit from additional coaching, then giving them that coaching.
How many people here use OACR without thinking on a normal basis?
Yeah.
See lots of hands there.
You mean like in cooking?
Yeah, okra. That's what really, since it's Thanksgiving and all, we're talking food and Laura's here.
You mean like child raising and kind of waiting to see what happens first and then deciding if you should coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Or with other drivers on the expressway.
So the best thing I heard today, and I want to share it. I was going to hold it off, but when Mike said it, other drivers on expressway, I'm jumping back in to Neil Peart's Traveling Music book about him traveling and how it relates to him. And one of the first things that popped out that I had forgotten that really made me laugh was a quote that said, "World peace starts with using your turn signals."
Not just using it, but turning it off when you're done with it.
Well, that's half the battle, is turning it on.
I understand you're turning left at some point in the near future.
That's the Seinfeld. That's the eventual left. He's making an eventual left.
Eventually, I'll get there.
But the question about OACR comes to mind because it was one of the first mentorship prompts that I received from the person that mentored me. And to this day, I have to remind myself, observe first. Don't make a rash decision. Observe, analyze, and then coach. And if you need to, reinforce. So, I still think it is one of the most productive acronyms, as opposed to C, that I've ever been given.
I think too, though, it's challenging as a newer coach to know what is more likely to work out eventually and what is less likely to work out. As when you start becoming an experienced coach, you kind of know, yeah, it's pretty likely they're going to figure this out with minimal coaching. Let me stand back and watch first. And as a newer coach, you don't have that confidence as much that they can really get it. Your first couple classes, you still don't necessarily trust the curriculum and trust that they're going to be able to figure this stuff out all by themselves.
Despite us.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, didn't mean to hijack things with that question.
Well, I'll hijack with a totally different thought. I was watching a recorded webinar today on road safety, and the speaker really had a lot of comparisons. Basically was calling roadway fatalities and major injuries a serious pandemic. That he was citing a lot of numbers of how many people have died from road fatalities compared to how many people have died from COVID. And when you start totaling up the numbers and looking at them worldwide, nationwide, and so forth, it's a huge number of people, yet we all accept that as a cost of the transportation in the way that we're used to having it. Have any of you looked at road safety or treated road safety as a pandemic or as a health issue? And I was thinking too that, well, let's go with that question first, and I'll try to remember my other thought for a little bit later.
We don't have that daily tote board of road fatalities, so maybe our awareness isn't as acute as what's going on.
There's also the matter of how it points to driver education. We got a lot of 16-year-olds. I never really thought about it. I wonder how many students are actually able to take a driver's ed course in the same contained environment with the instructor. Is that even happening now, or is it behind a year or two?
Well, driver's ed has been dropping by the wayside more and more anyway, just from economic reasons. But we don't think of it as a pandemic because it's kind of at a constant level. It's not like it's a change where we say, oh, look at that, all of a sudden we've got all this stuff happening. It's an ongoing number that happens continuously, and we've just become accustomed to it, I think. I mean, the numbers are kind of crazy. And I think as drivers, we do have a certain acceptance of crashes happen, a crash could happen. I don't think we think about the numbers maybe as much as we ought to.
I think our motivation for becoming coaches and how we relate in the motorcycling world is going to play a huge part in that. And Rita, I like to think you have a unique approach to this, being that you work at the Department of Transportation. I've always looked at what I do is I do this because this is fun. I've mentioned this many times about I work with people because it's fun and I like it, not because it's a job. And part of it is the breakdown of the basic rider course. We're teaching good commuter skills. And unfortunately, and I'm totally guilty of this, I don't ride a motorcycle because it's fun to commute. I ride a motorcycle because it's fun to make fun of Robin's video and say, gee whiz, how did you slow it down like that? Because that's not how I ride it. It's so much fun to ride a motorcycle. And there's that, riding a slow bike fast is better than a fast bike slow and all those other things. But ultimately, I'm here to have fun. Living in Wisconsin, this is, it's toy money. Motorcycles are throwaway money. They're never going to get me to work in December reliably, at least not at my skill level. And if I approach this as a business owner, that we are here to deliver safe commuters to their destinations daily, it's probably the right thing to do. I hate to say it, it might be the boring thing to do, and it might have never brought me here to begin with. So I suck. That's it. I want to ride motorcycles because they're fun.
Dude.
No, it's, there's a good point to that though, that being safe is kind of boring. We need somehow we need that adrenaline rush.
But also statistically, most motorcycle crashes are not happening in a commuting like environment, right? Most motorcycle crashes are a single vehicle running off the road in a corner. So maybe we're doing too good a job teaching safe commuting and not a good enough job with the other stuff, the fun stuff.
And I wasn't even viewing it as a motorcycle only question. I was kind of viewing it in the context of all vehicles.
Yeah, I'm with Lynn there. That's what I was thinking of, was just the overall, the totality. But bringing in motorcycling in the picture, yeah, over the past year and a half, I've heard so many great quotes that speak to the simple phrasing of new knowledge. One of them, for example, Jason knows this one, when you get to the turn. But that's not in the curriculum. You can't say these little things. That's not for the new rider. So I think that's okay. Let the curriculum be what it is. Let them absorb it the way they do. And every now and then you'll find somebody on the street and we still get to hear these new quotes, or contribute to that, that. So I'm only saying this because somebody brought up, where do you get to have fun with it? Where do you get to stretch it? These are great things that come with just motorcycle culture. So I guess I am backtracking from the coach I was in the first year and saying like that's not part of the gig. We can still cut loose and just, introduce new information, but stretching the curriculum, I don't know how to do it well enough.
Well, I mean, the new curriculum does talk about it. It all comes down to choices. It's decision making.
Yes, I hear you. Go on.
And I try to emphasize, everything you do on your motorcycle is a choice, is a decision being made. What do I wear? Where do I ride? When do I ride? How fast do I go? Do I pass? Do I not pass? Do I go?
So wait, Lynn. So would you say if I decided to use a delayed apex and slow down for that blind curve with the rocks in the middle of the road, that maybe Jason wouldn't have anything to say about it?
What Jason's about, it's up to Jason.
Learn how to ride on gravel, Robin.
but I mean, there's a decision going on, and you're either making your decision from an informed place, or you're making it from an uninformed place. Maybe you're riding into the gravel because you don't know any better, or and if you're doing it as a choice, well, what was driving that choice? And I just try to get people into their own heads to think about it. And car drivers maybe ought to be more in their own heads too, because I think as car drivers, we're all very lax about the how comes. We get in our cars and we go, and we probably don't give a lot. I mean, I went to driving school. I probably give a little more thought to it than most, but I think most people are not thinking about all the stuff that could happen when they get in their car and go for a drive. And the stuff you see on the road reflects that.
I think you're right. I think, of the things that, back to the commuter part, there's a time and place where I remember always being told that by my parents and jumping the gun on something. There's a time and place for this. It's okay. And the guy that wants to go have fun, I have been incredibly successful with smiles on my faces and smiles on my face and less tickets in my pocket. For that time and place. Somebody showed me, hey, you can go to the racetrack and they encourage you to go fast. This is fun. You don't have to do it on the highway, which is great. You're right about the driving thing. I do not think much about getting in my vehicle, 6 inches of snow on the ground, and we go, and we could go anywhere. I could go to my mom's house, and I remember talking to her friends, and she's like, oh my gosh, you have to go so slow on the roads. The conditions are horrible. I'm like, if they're that bad, stay home, get the hell out of my way. It's not that hard to drive in this stuff. But at the same time, the blue-haired old lady that used to irritate the shit out of me is my grandparents, causing the safe reaction time, the time and space margin that they needed to get there safely, that I wasn't ready for until I got to see people like Rita going, hey, Jason, there's a way to look at this, maybe from somebody else's perspective. And I think that maybe that's how majority of our road users is maybe not mentally mature enough to think about other people's view of things and put it into perspective that maybe they're not the most important person on the road. And now that I am nearing 45 years old, I can actually say that out loud. Holy shit, how many people have been driving since they're 16 that took as long as I took to understand that there's other people out there that might be more important than me on the road. I'm sure that I saw one of those people on the way to work today that totally didn't get that as they blasted by in a lane that was ending. But I don't know. I think that's some of the people that we teach. Some of the people that we teach look at it and go, hey, I'm driving. I'm going to have fun. This is how it is.
So the question,
how do we get them around?
Jason, are we teaching them or still doing it?
I'm sorry, please say that again.
Are we actually teaching them if they're still doing it? Are we making the impact?
As a guy who sits, I'm glad I switched my job. But my real gig was temporarily being a program director at the college for the diesel and heavy equipment program, a program that I graduated from. And I'm very excited to say everybody that works with me graduated from a similar program within our state. But some of the things that I see, some of the classes that our kids take, the economics, the society, what's it called? American Society class. There's some psychology classes that are there. These are 19-year-old kids. This is nearly like talking to a wall. However, I have to look at one time I was a 19-year-old kid in this class. Somewhere between 25 and 30 when I was in business, I figured out that I could actually put those things to use. So like those kids and like your example, yes, I totally think we're giving them those opportunities to learn. I think it might take until you mentally mature enough for those things to sink in. It's not that we're not telling it to them. It's that they don't get it until they find a reason to put that information to use. And they will go back to, because I know I can go back to instructors that told me something that I thought was total crap at the time, that I can now put a place and a time and a usage for this. And I try like hell to make my guys that are in my engines class understand that the dude that's teaching psychology has a point, and here's how you're going to use it at your place of employment to make you better today. I'm not sure that we have that ability with our students because we don't ride with them later. Most of us don't.
That leads perfectly into my next question. I was thinking about traffic crashes and fatalities being a health issue. And I have seen another webinar where the speaker was saying we are health practitioners in a way. And so I was thinking about a comparison between when you go to the doctor, you go in for your physical and your doctor tells you, you know, you really ought to quit smoking, drinking, you really ought to lose some weight, you really ought to do this and that to improve your health. And how many of us actually listen to our doctors and do what our doctors tell us? And I was thinking of the comparison of us trying to tell our students, you really ought to consider doing this, that, and the other thing because it'll help you stay alive out on the road. How many of our students actually listen to our health advice?
Isn't that part of the challenge of asking the proper reflective question that they verbalize to us as opposed to us telling them? Because when they feed back to you, at least you know the information was received, and maybe they'd be less likely to fib to themselves if they're verbalizing a true self-assessment of you know, what the information they gathered, and you know, making them do as they say, you know, instead of just hearing information from us.
I think Rick's got a good point. Although watching my children, they're really good at telling me what I want to hear, and later I get to go, remember when you said this? Yeah, Dad said don't do this because it's going to hurt. You get to tell them after the fact, which is that whole putting that information to use when it's important to them.
But your children don't look at Dad as a subject matter expert. They look at him as the guy that's going to punish me, and sometimes I just don't care. But when we're in an official situation where we're supposed to be the proficient motorcyclist or safety advocate or the subject matter expert, we have to use our words wisely. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth, in that proportion for a reason. And so what Rick just said, you know, resonates with me because at this point, it's what they're saying that makes you have that connection and provide the right information versus what you're saying in hopes that they're listening. And so that provides some authenticity because not only are you hearing what they're saying, you're relating to it and giving them information that will be helpful based on something that they're thinking about, not what we're thinking about. And so I think that's a very valid position, Rick, thank you, that we do have to get to know our students. We do have to get in their brains how they're thinking a little bit. And that in itself makes all the difference in the world.
A lot of their comments that you might overhear in the classroom while they're having their discussions about the activities, you don't always have an opportunity or a need to tap into them right at that moment. But sometimes out on the range, you can kind of pull in, oh, in the classroom, I heard, some mention about X, Y, and Z, or maybe, we're in the cornering exercises, you can talk about, well, what are some of the mistakes you made, while we were in this exercise, and how would that translate into, real life? If you made those same mistakes out on the street, what could cause that to happen, and kind of go back, whether you reference it directly or not, go back to some of their classroom conversations and kind of check the boxes.
So what you all are saying is that OACR is a classroom skill just as much as it's a range skill.
It's a whole course skill to embody how you connect better with what they're saying, I think. And just like we sometimes reference back to former tribe talks where we've brought up topics and then we delve deeper into it, it's because we've laid some kind of groundwork before that has led us to a conclusion about something that we're talking about here today. Rita, was there another question that goes along with this, or was that an add-on to question?
No, that was it. I was pondering about how, we're trying to give essentially health advice and hope that our patients listen just like our doctors do. They tell us all these things to help us be more healthy, and not a lot of people listen all that well to their doctors.
That ties in a little bit to some of the other stuff you've been talking about this week, Don, as far as attitudes about driver education, rider education, and where it seems to be not taken as seriously as it is in other parts of the world, where driving really is seen as a privilege, and that there's a seriousness to it that seems to be lacking in America.
And so what are your thoughts? Why don't you bring up that topic, because everybody may have.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. Make it happen, Captain.
Oh, golly. Well, Don posted an article, a paper actually, about a study of motorcycle education and what are some of the things that make it work and don't make it work. And
it was actually Dan Pedersen who posted it.
Okay.
And I think he found it on the resource library from Tribe Talks because it's one of Duncan McCrae's research.
Right. And it took place, down under. And a lot of what it showed was that the MSF curriculum is on the right track, in that it addresses not just physical skills of operating a motorcycle, but also the mental and emotional aspect of it. And that it would be good if it could go even that step further and include some on-road instruction and behavioral sorts of things. And just from my own experience of having, lived abroad, it's a big deal to get your license in other countries. Here it's kind of expected. Oh, you turn 16, you go get your license. Where in other places there's a financial investment that is made because it's required that you receive professional instruction. It's not mom and dad teaching you to drive. You're going to have to make an investment in lessons, and there's X amount of time that has to be put in. And the testing is stringent. In Sweden, your road test is going to be an hour and a half out driving and who knows what, and the penalties for messing up are more severe. If you get a DWI, you lose your license forever. And here we seem to be much more lax about it. And I think that's reflected in people's attitudes about driving and safety in general.
That kind of goes back to our conversation from previous weeks about the difference in student attitudes as they come into our class, depending on whether or not they paid. So, you know, when they have skin in the game money wise, they take it more seriously versus the states that offer free training or super low cost training. The students seem to approach that with a completely different attitude.
So if you haven't had the opportunity to read the study from Australia, it's both in the library and I think it was posted in the MSF RiderCoaches forum on Facebook this week. And there's some interesting comments, of course. You know, people opine, and I think that's great because you get the different perspectives. But I truly think that the people that will make a difference in this is us. If we talk to the right people, if we advocate the right things, understanding that this is a nation of freedom, the United States, that's what we're born upon. Freedom is great as long as you don't take it away from me.
It would require a huge paradigm shift to get buy-in from the public and the administration and from everybody really to make a change that made it be more serious and an earned right rather than an expectation, because we I don't know, people just don't take it seriously right now. It's a very different mindset in other parts of the world.
But the answer to the question that you're not asking is how many people are taking any sort of rider training past the BRC? It all goes back to motivation. Why are people taking the BRC? Are they there to learn to be safer? A couple. The vast majority just want their license. Once they got their license, they know everything. There's no reason for anything else. So any information, anything that we can do to help them make the correct choices above and beyond getting their license, it's icing on the cake. A few it may sink in with, but I got to believe the vast majority, it goes in one ear, out the other. And if you ask them 2 weeks later, what did I talk about with escape routes, escape paths? Most of them are going to stare at you with a blank face.
Well, and that kind of comes back to, you know, they didn't receive, most of them didn't receive professional driving instruction. Dad taught me how to drive a car. I'm a great driver. Why do I need professional instruction to learn how to ride a motorcycle? You know, it's a mindset.
All right. Well, two things. One is
maybe something to that.
Okay, so two things. One is, one way to flip this into a positive from a negative is in Texas they can get their temporary permits for the rest of their life. All right, and then they show up to this class. They don't have to be there. We're glad they are. They want to be legit, but they could get their permits forever and ever and ever and ever. So one way that I've found that gets them to absorb the information more is to let them know, hey, kudos to you. You know you don't have to do this, but if you want to have your license, then yeah, this is the only way they do it here. And knowing that they don't have to be there, it shifts the polarity, even if slightly, barely even. But it does, all of a sudden they're listening more because now they see themselves as being in a position where they elected to do this. That helps. And the other thing I was going to comment on, like, this may be the wine talking, but I think that as a coach at this point, my biggest takeaway as a coach is convincing students to maintain a good skill to risk offset. Like, of all of it, of all of what we coach them on, that's the one thing that I hope that they're going to do when they're gone. You know, if you're incredibly good at riding, that you'll just always maintain a rule of thirds. Sorry, it was two different things at the same time. Somebody take over.
Well, you know, when I was reading the study, and it was long, you know, it was, I don't know, 16 pages or something. When I was reading the study, and you know, it was talking about the buy-in, you know, that there's a need for, you know, this education and education beyond the basic physical skills, but the mental skills and emotional skills and, you know, real life skills out on the street. You know, I was thinking about our situation in America, and if it, you know, if it becomes too cumbersome from what people are used to, they'll just blow it off and be perpetual permit holders, or won't even get a permit. They won't go and do any training or get licensed or do any of that stuff at all, because it infringes on their rights, and or it costs me money, or all the other reasons or excuses that they might give for not doing it, and reasons that we see now for people not doing this training that we do offer, even the basic training. So, pardon me, it's how to get them excited about it and to want to do it. To me, that's the challenge, and it's not just the student level, but I guess a government level or legislative, or whatever the agencies are that oversee it.
I have a little bit of a different take on it, because in Alabama, to get a motorcycle license, all you have to do is go down to the DMV and take their multiple choice test. So the students that come to see me actually want to learn to ride properly and be safe. There is no riding test required to get your license in Alabama, which everybody who comes to the class agrees that it's crazy that you don't get some kind of training and you can just actually go take this test and get on a bike and see what you can do. So most of the ones that I have take it very seriously. And I have found quite a passion with it. I struggled when I first went to be a coach. I found out I've been riding for years and I had some really, really bad habits. So overcoming my bad habits was my first challenge. But it gives me a really good insight into some of the things that students don't do, or the struggles they have when they first learn how to do it. I said, well, I struggled with it. I see exactly what you're doing. It's what I did. So we get through it. And I tell them all, I said, once I figured out I was doing things wrong, I couldn't get enough of it. I took every class I could get myself all the way up. And as soon as we can get one scheduled, I'm going to take another one, the ultimate bike bonding. That's the next one. We were supposed to do one this year, but COVID-19 kind of put a damper on all of that. But I give them every list, every place that I can find of other classes that you can take. And I've had several students come back and tell me they did the BRC2, or they got registered for the basic bike bonding. One guy, he took the class because they get an insurance discount if they take a safety course. He has a trike. He passed on 2 wheels, but swore to me he would never get on them again. And I found a Honda class for him that didn't care what kind of trike you had, and it was free for him. And he told me that it was night and day different learning. So, and I had 3 of them with Vespa scooters come in and take the class for the same reason, to get the insurance waiver. And that was a lot of fun right there. They brought the Vespas in so I could see them, because I've never been on a scooter. So that was hilarious. But I've talked to them a couple of times about what did they learn from that class that helped them with the scooter, because I had a mother with a 16-year-old child with a scooter wanted me to help her with that. So I had some fun with her too.
Lynn, I love the fact that Alabama seems to have answered the crazy concept of not taking the class with like government simple test, hold my beer. It's like, oh, I guess I will take this class because that's just crazy. So, I mean, they've answered their own people,
Well, back when I got my license in the dark ages, you took the same test that you take for your learner's permit, the written test, and that was it. And I actually got to do that at 13 years old. So I got grandfathered in. I don't have to have a motorcycle anything. It's already on the motorcycle license. But so I know all kinds of people. My mother, good Lord, she has a motorcycle endorsement on her motorcycle. That scares the crap out of me. She can't ride a motorcycle, never been on one, but she's got the endorsement on her license.
Could this be a benefit of a tiered licensing system, so that they do have that ambition to learn more, to upgrade the size of their motorcycle. And the other thing is, can the insurance industry have a sliding scale based on your education, how much class you've taken?
Yeah, there's one discount. If you've taken a safety class, you get the discount if it's been within a certain amount of time. So, and we have 2 military bases right here too, that they have to have one, at least one every 2 years. So we get a lot of the military folks too that come in and take it. So, but it could be, and I know they're working hard trying to get it past where there is a riding test that's required for your license, but there's been a lot of resistance to it for whatever reason. Maybe at some point it'll get there, but at this point it's still just a written test. And that causes a problem with us because you can't transfer your motorcycle license to any other state because we don't require, even if you take the MSF or the Harley Riding Academy class, it will not transfer anyway. They require that you take another class in the state you move to.
Come to Wisconsin, we'll take that stuff. Right, Rita?
So I can send my failed students to Alabama. Then if they go from Alabama to Wisconsin and then come from Wisconsin back to New York, they can get their endorsement.
Potentially, I guess that's how that works. Hey, Don, as a guy I'm guessing, but in hearing enough stories, I think I'm right. You've spent a fair amount of time in Europe. And I assume that you've met people, what is the mindset of the average person that may have come from that tiered licensing, government says I have to, thought process about riding motorcycles, and not about what they think about us Yanks, but in general, how's it work there?
They consider themselves proficient motorcyclists, and so do I.
Don Tony here from Connecticut. I may have actually written this inquiry, but is there any data that shows that European motorcyclists have a better safety record than USA motorcyclists? Culture is a big part of all of this for certain, but I haven't seen any data that relates the two.
I have not seen a comparison personally, but it comes. Maybe I have, and I just don't remember it. But when I think about that, I think that their crash rates are less than half of what we have here.
Tony, let me ask you this. What venues have you gone through to try to find that data yourself? Just curious.
I'm pretty active in researching that sort of thing. So like, discussing Alabama's situation, it's pretty clear that those without formal training have a much higher incidence of crash, based on the NHSTA data and that sort of thing is at 20 or 30% higher rate. But when you talk between US and Europe, now you're talking about bigger cultural differences, and Lynn is very right to say that in this country, we believe a license is a right rather than a privilege, and is some sort of entitlement. And that's reflected in all the laws, motor vehicle laws, and even the penalties that get assigned to such things as homicide and that sort of stuff with a motor vehicle. You could kill somebody with a car and maybe get, a couple of months in jail at most in a lot of states.
But I could also, you compare America to Europe. Europe has a better track record. They also have a graduated license system, tiered licensing. What I also know is that I've spent a lot of time in Asia. I've been in Vietnam. I've traveled in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City, as it's called now. They have 10 million occupants. They have 9 million two-wheeled vehicles. And even the children in Vietnam grow up riding on two-wheeled vehicles. And I know I've said it before, you'll have one child on the handlebars, one child on the gas tank. You'll have a father that sometimes is holding on to the controls instead of the kid. And then in between mom and dad on the seat, you have the youngest kid cradled as mom is holding the shopping bags. And yet you probably won't find any good statistics there, but it seems they are innately attuned to riding on a motorcycle, and they don't have the training systems we have, and yet they probably have less crashes than we do because of their familiarity with growing up on a motorcycle or a moped. And you look at the elder age groups, and I know this has changed in crash statistics over the last couple of years, but people who grew up on farms, who rode bicycles as a natural form of transportation as kids, who transitioned to mini bikes, knew how to shift gears on equipment, transitioned quickly in the 70s to, the latest Japanese bikes that were so cheap that everybody can get around. And eventually they could afford to buy that Harley because that was the great marketing of the time, the American piece of machinery. Those people all grew up riding motorcycles or have a transition plan from one form of two-wheel transportation to another. The kids growing up today, although they have pocket bikes and electric scooters, don't have the same pathway to the future motorcyclists that we did back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, for some people that may be older than me, I hope. We have a different culture now, to go back to what Lynn says. But with that, and I wanted to throw this in, I'm sorry about the long pontification here, but that, riders education started with motorcyclist rights group trying to carve out a better future for us. So who would be better than motorcycle rights groups to get together with to maybe carve out what the future looks like, and instead of combating with them over what's safe and what's not, articulating to them the value of a graduated license system and how it can better the transportation, recreation, sport of motorcycling, and get rid of those bad habits instead of fighting with rights groups. It seems to be the current situation. And to round this all out, let's compare this to rider coaches, because it's something we know really good about. When we have a rider coach go through certification, and this is something that I was writing extensively on today, they come to us with previous experiences. They probably have ridden motorcycles for a while. They are probably proficient enough in motorcycling, steering the controls, that when they go through a rider coach prep, they've established enough credibility on the motorcycle to potentially be a coach. Some do, some don't, but I'll give it a general, hand wave and say our rider coaches are proficient motorcyclists. But as they become proficient motorcyclists, we certify them to the minimal standard of being a rider coach. Where did they take it after that? Do they attend the higher level classes? Do they become certified in the BRC2 if that's necessary in your area? Do they certify in the ARC, the SCRC, the bike bonding, the track days or total control? Do we expect that of ourselves? And if we don't, how can we expect the typical rider to do more than the BRC? And this seems to be the cogent thing that I keep seeing is if rider coaches don't want to take the next step to the next level, if our comfortable with being a BRC coach or minimal rider coach and they don't want to research more, how can we expect students to do any more than go to the BRC and that's enough for them?
Then you're gonna have to be able to tap into your classroom's like personality. You got to be able to connect with your students. All right. So I'll start off by just saying the reason I like coaching the course is because repeating the basics at the most fundamental level actually makes anything I know beyond it that much better. And that I'll joke, I am not the authority on motorcycling. I'm just here to repeat information. So this information is good for me. I'm happy to coach this class. And of course, you're still going to ride the demos for them. The things they don't think they can do, you get to do in front of them and prove that they can. So there's like a dual regard happening at the same time there. That said, trying to connect with them. Anytime I coach a class from start to finish, I'm telling them, always be casting a line into the next month. Find one day when you can find a half hour, whether it's a paid environment or not, to learn something new. Don't stagnate. I think these are two very simple responses that just say connect with the class and convince them otherwise. If you're just reading the material and if you're doing it dry, would you want to take that class?
Right, I do. Robin, you're totally right on how to get these students to come back, is that we need to engage them. But with what Don was saying, Don, you're totally spot on. I have never hired a coach that has not taken the ARC, the BRC2, or ultimate bike bonding, the Wisconsin ultimate bike bonding, what Ted does, or come to a track day. If you're not willing to go beyond BRC, I don't need you. If you're willing but haven't had the opportunity, we can talk. I can get you that opportunity. And thanks to people like Rita and Ted and Sarah, who have busted their ass to make sure we have those opportunities in Wisconsin, those are the things that we need. Because I see a lot of coaches, or coaches that, coach in process. A wannabe coach is not the term I want to use, but people that are there, they didn't know those classes exist. And when I tell them about it, I'm like, I'm totally in. I want to do that. I'm like, okay, now you can sit at the table with the rest of us and decide, do you want to be at the table with the rest of us? Because you're going to have to coach with the rest of us. But Don, that is a topic that irritates the crap out of me, that everybody wants to show up for the paycheck. But when I ask my other coaches, who wants to take? Oh God, I can't do that. That's cutting into my teaching time, or that's cutting into this, or I don't want to risk it. I'm like, dude, really? And Lynn, what I heard you say about those bad habits, this is the one thing that irritated the crap out of me as being a new coach. And I'm not speaking to whatever it is that you may have had, which truly could have been a bad habit. I look at it as one person's bad habit might be the next guy's advanced technique.
Well, the big thing with me is I learned to ride back in the 60s before they ever had these classes. And there was a time I wasn't riding for a while, and as a graduation present, some class I took, I was going to buy another Harley. It's been a while, let me get on. And I almost registered for a class there, and I got talked out of it because I'd been riding for years. But I had never had anybody teach me the techniques. So most of my problems were in body posture and where I'm looking. And that's one of the things I harp on in the class, is you just have no idea how important the way you're holding your body and where you're looking is. If you're having trouble, I promise you it's because you're not in the right position or you're looking in the wrong spot. And I found that with most of the ones that are struggling, that's exactly what it is. So it gives me a really, I guess, it hits home for me when I see it, and I'm able to spot that very quickly because of the struggles that I had with it. And it is something, it was difficult to break the habit of looking where I thought I should look instead of where I'm supposed to be looking. It's a comfort zone, I guess.
Well, this is interesting circumstances. So would you be interested in, what is your current skill set as a coach?
What is my current skill set?
Yeah. What are your certifications and such?
I teach for Harley, so I'm the skilled rider course, which is the equivalent of the BRC2, and now and the BRC. So that's the only ones that I'm certified in. That's the only ones I can teach at Harley. But I've taken through, we did the advanced, another 3 of the coaches here in Alabama and 2 of our students who were actually former riders. We all got together and got enough people to make an ARC class for MSF. And so I went through that one. We're getting ready to do the next one, and COVID hit. So, but
Something to consider on that, Robin, is the fact that not everybody has these things available. And so if they're not available in your area as a rider coach, are you willing and able to seek out those kind of challenges? And that's another big constraint that we have here in the United States is we have 50 independent states and provinces, 52 provinces, if you include provinces, I think, maybe 54.
Puerto Rico,
America, Samoa, Guam, you know, there's so many. But, you know, we all have different rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and laws that dictate what is available as a rider coach.
Well, and you know,
it's difficult
for the ARC because I feel like my pavement isn't optimum enough. You know, I've got a lot of patches and holes and, you know, stuff that's been filled in, a lot of repairs made. And I think the ARC deserves better. So that's off the table. I schedule BRC2s. Every time I schedule a BRC2 LW, I overlap it with the BRC2. I don't get a lot of takers, you know, and I schedule and schedule and schedule, and I have empty, and, you know, I have classes that aren't happening. So as a site administrator, what do? Do I give up that pavement time, or do I schedule something that's going to fill and actually, you know, keep the lights on over the winter? So there's a trade-off that happens. And I'll keep putting those BRC2s out there. I try to promote them. I advertise, I do all this, I get nothing. So, you know, at some point you have to cut your losses. Where is that point? What can we do to drive more return student traffic?
we just started offering them, and our first class was scheduled for mid-April, and COVID hit and all had to be canceled. So I got licensed in it, but I haven't taught one yet. Or I got certified in it, but I haven't taught one yet.
I will tell you all, and you know, this is nothing new. There's no secret. You know, there's quite a spread of available classes, available classes. That didn't sound right, did it? There is a spread of classes that covers almost everything you could possibly want as a rider coach or a rider for MSF. But if you look at the money that it takes to produce this stuff and what's actually being used, BRC is it. BRCU is it. All these other things, like Lynn says, doesn't make money. You can't even get a class of rider coaches together to take these courses in particular areas. And I think it's a travesty. You know, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take a refresher in the course as a student if it was available? But try to fill a class with rider coaches and you'll have the same problem that you have with students, which goes back to what I'm talking about. If a rider coach doesn't believe they need anything more than the minimal certification, are they truly a lifelong learner? And are those the kind of people that you want teaching other people how to ride? A minimalist.
Don, I would challenge that premise and say that your ability to ride may have something to do with your ability to teach, but I think your ability as an educator is far more important during the rider coach process than actually your ability to ride a motorcycle. Your ability to relate to adult learners, youth learners, to be able to, you know, get the message across in a variety of different ways is far more important than how well you can ride You know, I think when it comes to being an effective rider coach.
Okay, well, that's being an effective rider coach based on curriculum, and that's a brass tack standard. If you're all at the same time trying to inspire people to continue to learn, or to continue to want to be better or safer, I mean, I jokingly call the ARC the Fisher Price of advanced courses, you know, but it's because everything that is MSF based is safety driven. So, I mean,
I will violently agree with Tony that it is about education, but that's now not how we get people into this business, sadly. People have interest in I would prefer it be a balance. I've talked before about the Tao or the Tao, however you want to pronounce it. Being a rider coach, it's not all about riding. We've discussed that ad infinitum. Motor skills is important, but what's really important is the judgment, the ability to assess risk, to safely make these decision-making processes work for us. And sadly, we can have the opposite problem where people just want to teach, but yet they don't know the schemas or the proper way to teach somebody how to ride a motorcycle in an appropriate way, so that they're not doing something beyond what they should have learned earlier. Hence, you know, the reason why the curriculum is written in order, because it builds upon itself. And if you skip or reinforce something from a later portion in the curriculum, there's the opportunity that you're not spending enough time, like Lynn says, on those first 4 key exercises that allows us to lay the basis to learn and build from. So violently agree, Tony, but also, you know, it's a cumulative thing. It's the Tao. It is everything: motor skills, safety, adult education, and learning. And sadly, we always revert back to the motor skill development.
Hey, Lynn, I got a question for you. Do you have your coaches talk about the advanced classes in the wrap up for the class?
Which Lynn are you talking to?
New York.
Yeah, no, we do. We reference and not just MSF curricula, but that there's other, you know, there's other avenues, you know, there's track days and stunt days and dirt days and, you know, all kinds of stuff beyond the.
But are they passionate about it?
Oh yeah, no,
okay.
No, they're into it.
I got you, Robin.
But I have to say we have a hard sell on the BRC2s, which is what we're currently offering, you know, as the next step. We have a tough time pulling people in.
I challenge my students to take another class within a year, if for nothing else, just to refresh their skills. And we have been fairly successful on some of the advanced classes in our area. We do have one hog chapter that has a safety weekend, and this year they actually filled 4 classes in one weekend.
See, and when I was doing this down in New York, there were a lot more clubs, and we actually had a pretty healthy club, return visit. You know, they come annually as a club event and do stuff, but there seems to be less of that atmosphere, you know, up here in the country where I am.
I laugh at the hug chapter I'm a member of because they don't take the safety classes. And I tell them, I said, look who won your hog games again this year. I can guarantee you every one of their members that participated in your hog games are the ones that took the advanced classes this spring. And they don't listen to me. And it's like, okay, sooner or later they'll get it.
Don, how many people here who have driver's licenses have taken advanced driver training on their vehicles or their cars?
Oh, I got a better question I ask my students. Who here has actually taken a formal driver's ed? Because in Missouri, it's not required. They are learning from their parents, from their siblings, from their aunts, their uncles, whoever.
The continuing education problem, I don't think is unique. I mean, I'm a member of the National Ski Patrol and, you know, a lifelong learner. And how many people have taken ski lessons once they've actually been able to ski upright and down the hill and stuff like that? Very few. You name it. I have a pilot's license, and how many people, you know, go on and do more advanced pilot training and things like that? Very few. They do biennial flight reviews because they're required, but people don't go on and learn aerobatics and other things that might benefit them. You know, that's the rare personality, I think.
But what are the actual crash statistics pointing towards as the necessary people to take that training? So pilots have a pretty good safety record. There's a reason, because if you screw up in an airplane, it causes death, either for the passengers or the pilot. And I've thought about that a lot in the last couple weeks. And the reason is I was driving a semi-truck this week, and I didn't need a CDL to do it because I was on a farm. And as I got into the driver's seat, and I've driven them before, but this was new to me on the farm. As I've gotten the seat, I had my dad screaming at me like, shift. No, you're shifting too quickly. You're shifting too slowly. And eventually I had to stop and say, Dad, give me a minute. You know, let me figure this out. You know, let me hear the RPMs so that I can know where the shift pattern is. And I've never, you know, I've driven stick before, but I've never driven a 12 speed before. And then I realized I didn't have to use the clutch because I could hear what was going on. So it does come down to experience. What have people been exposed to? What different types of vehicles have you driven, and how do they transfer? Because we talk about knowledge transfer in driver's education quite a bit. That's why the motorcycle rider education courses are so short, because we expect transfer from driving a car or another vehicle. But the fact is, people are getting less and less and less experience driving, and it's showing up in the crash rates. And unfortunately, unlike ski accidents or airline crashes or even normal car automobile type crash accidents, motorcycle accidents are overrepresented, and that's what we have to change. And as of yet, even after 40 some odd years of what we're doing, we're not making a big enough dent. We've made a dent, can't prove why, but we've made a dent, but we need to do more. And I think that's what it all comes down to, is how do we begin to understand better what we're doing and make a bigger dent in the crash statistics, so that maybe we have a better, I can't think of the word now. I can't reputation.
You're drinking what I'm drinking.
No, I'm drinking water, man. So my brain is full of shit.
Tito's water.
Well, how about as the standard? I mean, I realize a lot of motorcycle crashes are single vehicle crashes, but how about as the standard of car drivers declines, the motorcycle statistics go up? I mean, is that how much of the equation is that?
You mean on a percentile basis they go up?
Yes, exactly.
Not as much as you would predict.
Hope.
We have looked really hard at that, or at least I have, and I think they do at NHTSA too under FARS. And if you look at the statistics, even though the message is, you know, look twice, save lives, look for motorcyclists, the bottom line is the majority of crashes are not the fault of the other drivers. It's the fault of the people on two wheels running off the road without any other vehicle, single vehicle crashes. And then when there are other vehicles involved, if you look at the percentages and how they break out, the percentages are not being hit from the rear. It's the motorcycle hitting somebody to the front, which means there was an opportunity for that motorcyclist to slow down or not put themselves in so close proximity that they could see or avoid. You like that, Tony? See and avoid what was going on in front of them. And the problem is we're not doing that. We're not doing a better job. In fact, we're doing a worse job because the statistics over time are going in that direction. It's the motorcyclist's fault. We can no longer accurately point at other people for our problem. And I think that's something I wrote about sometime within the last year or so. We have to do better. We have to be accountable for our own actions. And that's, you know, Don's soapbox, but it's true. All you have to do is look at the crash statistics and what's being reported in FARS by NHTSA.
What's the odds that from the reportable basis, a motorcycle crash is going to be reportable because chances are the motorcycle is not going to be drivable away from the crash. Whereas we've had 5-mile-an-hour bumpers since the early 1970s, and cars that get into crashes that honestly, it doesn't have to be reported unless it's over a whatever threshold. So if there's not an officer involved, there's certainly not going to be a crash unless somehow there's an insurance agency involved. Fatality accidents, clearly, you know, motorcyclists are above and beyond as far as those crashes and the statistics. But I suspect in watching, you know, on a daily basis, life happening in stupid drivers. What if the reportable versus non-reportable crashes actually made a dent in how many motorcycle crashes versus four-wheel crashes there were in a given year? And I know I'm treading on the idea of, you know, fake news and shit Jason's making up for just because, but what if? I mean, I think Don's spot on that the motorcyclist is involved outside it, and even in the idea that you got rear-ended at a stop sign. Tell me why your bike doesn't have mirrors that you use. So we're totally involved in that. But what if the reportable data versus non-reported data might make a dent in that?
Probably not. I mean, you're going to have people that aren't going to report crashes because they're trying to circumvent the insurance issue there.
Absolutely.
But if it's a motorcycle involved with somebody else, you bet your ass they're probably reporting it and probably blaming it on the other vehicle.
Oh, I'm not suggesting the motorcyclists are getting in accidents and not reporting it. I'm suggesting that maybe motorcycle crashes versus just four-wheel vehicle crashes, the numbers might be skewed as the four-wheel operators might not be reporting at the same rate as motorcyclists.
I think you could pretty much call that a bias wash. I mean, the same kind of people that don't report a vehicle crash are the same kind of people that aren't reporting a motorcycle crash. I don't want to tell you, but, you know, in my earlier days, I remember in Germany, believe it or not, flipping over somebody's car and helping them, you know, get it to the auto dealer in the middle of the night so nobody would see that there was no longer a roof. It was all crushed down, so they wouldn't have to report it to insurance so that they could just pay for it themselves. People do that all the time. But I would say that the same type of people, the same type of instance probably happens with motorcyclists that run off the road and they hurt themselves, but they're not reporting it. And, you know, oh, I just kicked something, or, you know, what have you. Those are out there too. It's human nature.
I would say that there's probably more reporting for car crashes now because cars are being built to crumple up to absorb the crash impact, as opposed to back in the day when you could hit something pretty hard with a car and you didn't even know you could look at the car and barely see a scratch. Nowadays, you tap something super light and the airbag goes off and the bumper crushes in, and you know, you don't have to be in a very extensive crash and the car is totaled out.
And then there's the ambulance chasers who want to get the lawsuits going.
Oh, Don, what you said earlier about flight training and being a pilot and how you show up to flight training knowing and you receive the message that the stakes for making a mistake are very high versus motorcycle or car training where everybody knows somebody that's been in a car crash and it's been not a big deal usually. And maybe they take it less seriously because of that. And is there something that we could take from flight training that would kind of instill a greater sense of you can't screw this up on a motorcycle or bad things happen? Maybe we're not doing a good enough job with that.
Let me,
I don't want to pass doom and gloom along to my students, but I don't sugarcoat the consequences. I really don't. And you know, there's some occasions in the curriculum to kind of bring up some real life and local situations, you know, that have happened, you know, with bad consequences, and it's all decision making. You know, this person made this and this and this and this bad decision, and this was the result. You know, just to get them thinking about, you know, what they bring into it.
I'd like to defer to Tony on this. What do you think, Tony, if in comparison with pilot training versus motorcycle training, is there transferable ideas to increase the safety and the mortality rates in motorcyclists?
Well, I mean, here's a problem. You know, now while we were talking, I was just trying to look up the accident rates for motorcyclists versus cars. And it's really hard to find that. And in the brief time I've been trying to look, I haven't been able to find a fair comparison of accident rates of motorcyclists versus cars. There's a lot of data about the fatalities of motorcycles versus cars and injuries of motorcycles versus cars, but those aren't fair comparisons because one, you're enclosed in a steel cage, and the other one, you're out in the open. But the actual accident rate, I'm not sure. My gut feeling is that drivers are drivers, and whether you're on 2 wheels or 4, you're probably just as likely to do something stupid, to take a chance, or you know, have an accident with maybe a slight increase in the fact that because we have to balance 2 wheels, you know, we're going to have a higher incidence of bikes dropping or which I guess was the leading cause of crashes, according to that North Carolina study, that people were actually dropping their bikes. That was the biggest crash statistic. But to address your question, Don, you know, safety and training, you know, when you compare commercial pilots with recreational pilots, you know, the training is so much more intense with commercial pilots compared to recreational pilots. And recreational pilots are responsible for most of the accidents. You know, general aviation, I think it's, you know, 10% of the existing aircrafts are damaged or destroyed almost every year, you know, in the general aviation field. So.
You know, and one of the things to keep in mind when you're looking at vehicle crash statistics is that you also need to consider miles traveled. And with four-wheel vehicles, states have a pretty good idea of how many vehicle miles are traveled. With motorcyclists, not so much. Some states, the way they come up with their vehicle miles traveled for motorcycles is they'll say maybe, okay, we're just going to say it's probably about 5% of our car miles. Or they just make up a total guess. They don't have as accurate of statistics for vehicle miles traveled for motorcycles. And I guess, you know, that got me thinking too, when you're talking, Tony, about pilots, if you think about miles traveled in aircraft and how many miles are traveled on commercial airlines as opposed to private pilots, that makes the crash rate for private planes even higher because they're not traveling nearly as many miles as commercial airlines.
Well, yeah, that's certainly true, Rita, and you bring up a good point about the data and mileage traveled. I mean, it's pretty clear that, you know, you're 3 times more likely to be involved in a motorcycle fatality if you've been drinking than if you've been in a car, or no, I guess an accident rather, not fatality, but you're 3 times as more likely to be in a motorcycle crash if you've been drinking than you are if you've been driving an automobile, I think, if I'm reading the data right. But yeah, so again, Rita, to your point, the danger part of crashing is not in the flying over the middle of the country, it's the landing and takeoffs. So, you know, in some extent, the mileage doesn't really matter. It's how many landings and takeoffs you do that's going to determine how often you crash.
Takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory.
Yeah.
So I just posted a link to the reference library that has a couple years worth of NHTSA stats. What I will say, you know, I know Rita went to per miles traveled. I think that is a somewhat arbitrary measurement. And the reason it's used is because they need to measure something, and that's probably a way to measure it. The problem is we haven't found a great way to measure such things, and so everybody defaults to that. And even in the NHTSA 5-year plan, just like Rita says, it is a shot in the dark as a way of figuring out accidents, crashes, and mortality rates, because they've admitted that, you know, it's a shot in the dark, and they probably don't even know how many miles are traveled because of inaccuracy of record keeping. So we're over 2 hours now, and I know you guys want to stay and talk all night, but we're not going to do that because then I have to edit more. And we have the ability to get back together, if you so desire, on Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. for an official tribe talk. So one thing that I will request of everybody, and I hope to send out another email on Friday to maybe tap into some administrators. If you know any new rider coaches that have been newly christened or certified within the last 1 or 2 years, please have them attend Sunday's Tribe Talk, because it's our opportunity to learn how they're doing, number one. Number two, what we can learn from them, I think, extremely important. And maybe number three, how we should look at them differently in the future to bring them along as members of the tribe. So if you could do that, I'd certainly appreciate it. It helps the tribe out. And then I know many of the people in this room have been exposed to the 3-minute thesis that I discussed. And Rita gave a great example of that. Not the last Tribe Talk, but I think the Tribe Talk before. This is your opportunity to kind of bring your 3-minute thesis home. If you want to contact me and talk about it, please do. But where are you at in that? Have you started action? Have you just talked about it, or have you completely blown it off? Because I've blown off doing another one, waiting on somebody else to step forward. But if I have to start making them myself, I certainly will. Any thoughts on 3-minute theses?
You told me to talk about traction. I haven't even touched it. I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
Dude, it's so easy. Somebody else has already done the work for you. All you have to do is modify it and make it mean something for everybody else.
Wait a minute. You guys all got handed out 3-minute thesis assignments?
No.
That's awesome.
Just Robin.
Just
Oh,
Robin.
even better. Even better. So before Don cuts us all off, and Lord knows, I've always said when I show up, Don, just cut it. Whatever it is after that probably didn't count anyways. But those two things between you and Tony talking about needing to have that ability as an instructor or a teacher and the ability as a rider, I think they have to cohabitate in the same person. And I think in any given individual, if you show up with one skill and you have desire, we can probably teach you the other to get that balanced effect. Trying to find teachers that want to be rider coaches might be slightly more challenging, because I'd like to think that those highly educated individuals might look at our crash statistics and be like, yeah, I don't want any of that. But occasionally we get one. And I am lucky to try very hard to court one of our rider coaches' wives who happens to be a teacher to try and also become a rider coach, much like Robin's wife chose to, even though she's pretty good at it, though not a teacher by trade, is my understanding. But in both of those cases, with what we need, and back to the rider coaches who don't subscribe or walk the walk, so to speak, we know that those classes, the BRC, well, I assume the BRC2 is available everywhere, but the more advanced classes may not be available, but it's desire and willingness to get better at both teaching and riding. And if we think we know all there is to know about any one of them, it's a great time to step away, and sometimes forcefully so. That's where I think I need to draw the line and go, okay, I'm out. Or maybe tell somebody they have the opportunity to meet new people.
That brings up the other thing I had in my mind pretty much all day, and it'll be a great parting shot for everybody to consider until we meet again. And it gets back to, a way of life. In my mind, whenever I accomplish something, I'm pretty happy, but I'm also pretty quick to say, now what? What's next? Because it's easy to achieve things, easier than most people consider. If you set your mind to it and you have the motivation, you can make an achievement. And I've always been a believer of that. If you desire to do something, you'll do it. If you don't have the desire and motivation to do it, you won't. It's that simple. How important is it? So now what? What's next? We should be seeking people who have that desire. I've certified, now what? What's next? How do I improve? And it gets back to, gosh dang it. Of course, I can't find the book. It gets back to something Mark Wise and I have discussed on many occasions. Greatness is rarely achieved. You may touch it now and again, but it's fleeting because things change. Curriculums change, technology changes, modalities to teach those technologies or the latest thing changes. And so if you touch greatness once or twice, it goes away, and then you're back to now what?
It's a good place. It's a good place to visit, but you can't live there.
Thank you. And that's what it is. I mean, that's how we grow as not only rider coaches, but as people. So I'll leave you with that. Now what? Is it 3-minute thesis? Maybe. Is it ensuring that rider coaches that we want to bring into the group are educators? Maybe. Are they, do they have desire and motivation to take all the courses they possibly can? Absolutely. So as you leave and come back next week, You know, what's next? Because Don doesn't drive the train, MSF doesn't drive the train, believe it or not. We collectively as a tribe make the determination of what's next level. What are we willing to achieve? And we can only do it together. It's not an individual, it's the collective tribe, the collective we, as I like to say. So think about that. And I hope that everybody, wherever you may be, have a great, happy Thanksgiving with the people you love, that you enjoy the time together, that you break real bread, even, this funky American tradition of eating turkey and all that, that you really enjoy yourselves. And like Jason says, have fun. Because if you're not doing that with your loved ones, you're probably doing something wrong. Happy Thanksgiving. I love you all. Don't take that wrong, but I mean it. And I'll see you in a couple days and certainly in the future.
Hey, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And hey, Jason, by the way, your mic was on there, Captain Crunch. Continue on, please.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I like to